If the Labour government doesn't fully commit to one policy change, lifting this cap that was introduced by George Osborne, which is accepted to lift 250,000 children out of poverty in one go, is that a Labour government really worth the name? Because quite a lot of their own backbenchers that I speak to say, look, what is the point of us being in government if we just take away benefits from disabled people, if we just take away benefits from pensioners, and we don't do anything on really totemic Labour issues like child poverty?
I want to alleviate children out of poverty. It's one of the main things I came into government for. I grew up in a workless household, 3 siblings, and child benefit, didn't save us from the poverty, but there was a council house that supported us. Being in work is one of the main drivers of being able to contribute and support your family. So there's a number of measures
I hear you completely,
that we're taking that I think will alleviate bring down those child poverty figures.
The question, this alone, this one decision, regardless of everything else you're talking about, this one decision would, according to independent experts, lift 250,000 children out of poverty overnight. I mean, why would a Labour government not do that?
Well, as I say, we're looking as part of our child poverty task force. That is in scope within that task force, but we're looking at all of the issues that are creating child poverty. And it's not a silver bullet, Ben. That's what I'm saying to people. The reality is this is not a silver bullet.
But it is for those 250,000 children who see themselves lifted out of poverty.
People out of poverty. So, for example, the free breakfast clubs that we've rolled out, that's going to save families over £450 a year, and will give children the best start in life, getting into the school ready and having a meal before they get into school and able to learn. So we're already taking measures, and when the economy improves more, we want to take further measures, and we'll outline that as part of our child poverty task force later this year.
Even Nigel Farage is reportedly going to come out this week and say reform, if it was in government, would lift that 2-child limit. That according to the Sunday Telegraph today. You've been outflanked on child poverty as a Labour Party by Nigel Farage.
Well, Nigel Farage says a lot of things, but the reality is, like for my employment rights bill that lifted, gave people secure work, banned 0-hour contracts, he didn't vote for it. He voted against it. He voted against working people. So he can say he's going to give jam tomorrow, but with all things Nigel Farage, snake oil salesman, it's not real, and he's not said where the money's coming from, and therefore I wouldn't believe a word he says on it. If there's any government that's going to do something on this and eradicate child poverty, it's a Labour government, and we're determined to do that through our task force by looking at child poverty in the round, and as we grow the economy, using that money to protect young people and give them the best opportunities in life, which is one of our key plan for change.
Where do you want to start? Child benefit cap or winter fuel?
Child benefit cap. I think that, to be honest with you, there needs to be a bit more accountability in this society. There was a fair amount of notice given that there was going to be a cap on if you have more than 2 children and if you're on benefits. I think if you can't afford to have more children, then you shouldn't. I happen to know several people that have got 1 child and are deciding not to have any more because of affordability. They're also the same people that pay the higher rate of tax into this system. I also know several women and couples who've decided not to have children because they don't feel it's the right time, they can't afford it. They want to make sure that the children they bring into this world have nice experiences, have a good quality of life. They don't feel they're at that position, so they're making the decision not to have children. Whereas other people reproduce
aren't you, even if that's right, Edith, aren't you punishing the children for what you might think is a failure or a mistake of their parents?
No, I think another solution, and I don't know what that is, needs to be found in order to help the children that are already here. I did hear it last week.
What do you mean when you say already here? Because these are the people we're talking about. These are the people who, maybe you're right. Maybe their parents simply had more children than they can afford, or maybe they had children they could afford and then their circumstances changed. But either way, we've got 3 million or so children in this country living. In fact, 30% of all children in this country right now live in poverty. I think that's an absolute disgrace.
That is a really high number, and that is really sad.
30%.
But that they need help. I'm not saying that children should live in poverty because of the mistakes adults have made.
But this is the one thing more than any other that the government could do to lift 250,000 of those children out of poverty. And I would say, I hear what you're saying, but I would say, regardless of what their parents might have done wrong in your eyes or anybody else's eyes, you don't keep children in poverty because you don't like decisions their parents have made.
No, I think there needs to be something done to address that. I'm not saying they should be left to sit in poverty, but I think the danger of scrapping the two-child policy is that, okay, now you can have 3 children. Okay, well, actually, no, now there's another, 3 million children in poverty. So now we need to increase it to a 4-child cap policy. I just think, where will it stop? So I think there needs to be more education. And also, there is a bigger picture in the sense that if you've got children who are in households where, they're not getting the support they need, they're not getting the time, the attention they need, parents are having to work, all hours of the day and so on,
Sure.
These then become children that left on the street, get into all kinds of trouble. Like, the education needs to come at a different angle. And I don't think giving people a green light to have more children and, regardless of it, don't worry, we'll help you.
So Reform's 28-page policy document is actually fully costed to the tune of £141 billion. And in the context of raising the two-child benefit cap and reinstating the winter fuel allowance universally, we're only talking about £5 billion out of total government spending, Ali, of £1 trillion. £5 billion could be found tomorrow. You could, for example, reduce the overseas climate aid budget from 11.6 billion to around 6 billion by doing that. And overseas countries would still get £6 billion, but we would be able to help the poorest children in this country and help pensioners who've worked all their lives.
Well, also, to be fair, Daniel, Zia Youssef, Reform's party chairman, has said that the party would pay for policies like the reinstatement of winter fuel payment and this two-child benefit cap being scrapped by cutting the foreign aid budget and closing asylum hotels and ending net zero subsidies. I mean, just to give a flavour of this, overseas aid in the last year, 15.3 billion spent on it, 0.5% of GDP. And also on asylum hotels, we've spent about 3 billion. So there is money there to be saved.
There is, absolutely. Look, the Home Office itself agrees that asylum accommodation is costing us £4 billion a year. Over this Parliament, that's £20 billion. So when we're talking about money for the poorest children in this country and pensioners who deserve their winter fuel allowance, it's peanuts. And it really frustrates me, Ali, and I'm grateful to you for highlighting on LBC, that there is this sort of false argument, this logical fallacy, mostly from people on the left, that say, oh, where are you going to cut? Where are you going to cut? How are you going to raise the money? How are Reform going to pay for all of this? When we're talking about £1 trillion of government spending, when we're talking about this current Labour government wasting £22 billion on untested carbon capture, £4 billion a year on asylum accommodation, billions of pounds on overseas climate aid. We're talking about tens of billions of pounds of money that is going to causes that are not in the UK that deserve to be.
Do you think endless welfareism is where the public is?
No, absolutely not. I don't think endless welfareism. I think people want to see their taxes spent properly. But I think, Ali, if we're talking about great British values, and if we talk about the values of reform that Nigel and Zia and Richard Tice talk about, of family, of community, of country, people want to see their taxes that they pay and that they work hard for spent on deserving causes. And I don't understand how people can say that the pensioners who paid into the system for 20, 30, 40 years and the poorest children are not deserving of that money.
Thank you very much indeed, Daniel.
We've got such a windy day today. All these weather vanes we've had in power, and he's just another one, Farage. He's jumping on the bandwagon or things that were, I'm going to not swear, but obvious, shall we say, with a word missing there. The pressure is coming from Labour, things like winter fuel, not from Farage.
Okay,
but it doesn't stop him jumping on the bandwagon.
It's interesting. Look, firstly, I don't think Nigel Farage is a weather vane at all. I think he's a complete signpost. Whether you like him or not, he's been very, very direct on and believing in his views around the EU for years, for decades. He's campaigned for it, and on immigration. You could say that he's being opportunistic on scrapping the two-child benefit cap and also reinstating the winter fuel payment. Why? Because he believes that that's where public sentiment is, and nothing wrong with that. Populists being popular, what's wrong with that? People denigrate him, but if he can find the money, good luck to him.
Well, yes, he's got to find the money. But what I somewhat question is who is the backer of reform? Where is this coming from? Because it's a very strange thing, isn't it?
Well, who are the backers of reform? Like the thousands of people who voted for them in the local elections the other week?
Well, yes, exactly. But I think, I'm somewhat suspicious of this reverse takeover of the Tory party.
Well, it's not a takeover of the Tory party. He's not interested in the Tory party. He's interested in destroying the Tory party. And at the moment, it looks like he's going to be destroying Labour too.
Yeah, well, the figures just don't add up at the moment. However, one thinks that Labour still has a pretty overwhelming majority.
It does, Anthony, but let me ask you this. You're right, absolutely correct, that Labour has a majority of over 400 MPs, Reform has 5. The interesting thing is, though, you've had Starmer coming out with that speech recently on immigration, talking about us turning into an island of strangers unless immigration is reduced, and lots of people on the left getting very, very upset about the fact that he's clamping down on care visas and other things. And on this, now, we now understand the Prime Minister might be looking at scrapping the 2-child benefit cap and removing and doing a U-turn on welfare. I mean, it's Nigel Farage as the de facto Prime Minister, Anthony.
Well, we saw it before under Theresa May, didn't we? We had the sort of backbenchers. Then we have Oliver Letwin, who was the de facto Prime Minister at one stage. Let's hope we don't get into that. But
Oliver Letwin was hiding in a cupboard most of his political career. I never really saw him. Go on, Anthony.
Yeah, the other sort of slight sidetrack I might draw you into is Boris Johnson, because we don't know what he's going to do. He's having rather a lot of children at the moment.
No, to be fair to Boris, Anthony, he is upping the birth rate, which needs to go up because it's 1.47. So he's doing his bit.
Well, exactly. But he's sort of lying remarkably low at the moment, isn't he? What say he didn't make a sort of move back into Parliament?
Well, he might do, because Kemi Badenoch's unfortunately rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic and not doing a very good job. But the Tory party's sinking fast.
As far as Nigel's concerned, I would say that the wailing and the gnashing of teeth that you are getting on your radio about this gentleman is totally unwarranted. Mm-hmm. In my view, he is a once-in-a-100-year politician. He's never, ever wavered from any of his beliefs, unlike almost every other politician that you can name. His motto is family, community, country, and who can argue with that? Let me ask you a question, Ali. You obviously know more about politics than I do, but can you name me one politician, either now or going back for 30, 40 years, who, A, would be invited to the most powerful man on the planet's private residence, i.e. Mar-a-Lago, with Donald Trump, and equally could walk into any pub in Bradford or Carlisle or Sunderland or Plymouth or anywhere and not be able to buy a drink?
Look, I think it's an important point you raised, because Rudyard Kipling told us you can walk with kings and retain the common touch. I mean, that is the way to handle things. And he certainly does have that appeal. And I don't disagree with you there, Chris. And I've known Nigel for many, many years. And he's a very, very affable, likeable sort of guy. But you've also got to be very, very clear and put him up to scrutiny on what the policy platform is. Now, I agree with you that he's always been consistent around immigration and also around his views on the EU and us leaving it. Those I would absolutely, completely agree with you on. But this is all a bit new, isn't it? Moving from a radical Thatcherite tax cutter to now try and cozy up on welfare reform. That's a political ploy, isn't it?
Well, yes, it could be seen as that, but to my way of thinking, it's about doing what's right. You see, there's all this talk about how he's going from the left, he's going from the right. No, it's about what's doing right for the country.
Understood.
You must be related to Suella Braverman and.
Well, I don't support him. All I'm saying is that.
But why are you giving him? Why are you giving him all this airtime?
No, well, Chris, I'll tell you why. Well, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you exactly why. Because he's just won 677 seats, for heaven's sake, in a local election and a by-election when he's dominating the polls as well. That's why. He's only got 5 seats. He's calling all the shots.
Yeah, based on race, hatred, based on
Sorry, I'm falling asleep on this one. Forgive me. I mean, come on, Chris. Can we be serious, right, about race hatred again? I mean, seriously? What? All the thousands of people who voted for him in the north are all racists, are they?
no, not all of them, but I can guarantee you every racist did vote for him. And now give me one good thing that guy's offering to the people, not to the public. What does he know about politics? All he knows about is Europe, and he wants to get out of Europe. He's been trying to do that for 20 years.
Well, what does Keir Starmer know about politics? I mean, Keir Starmer only got into politics a few years ago. He's a barrister. I mean, you could say that about any of these people these days. This guy's been in frontline politics for 25 years, for heaven's sake, right? What on earth are you on about?
But knows nothing about policies. Obviously, all he knows is he's got one narrative. He follows people like Trump. Now, if you want, listen, Ali, if you want our world to go like America, just throw people out the country who aren't even foreigners. I mean, yeah, fine, let's do that, and then they'll start picking on you, Ali, because you'll be like the third generation immigrant. You're the only one left here. So, yeah, it's that. Now they'll start kicking people like you out. Is that what you really want?
Of course, I don't want that to happen, but I don't think that's what Reform are suggesting at all. Look, Chris.
Oh, really?
I don't think they're suggesting that at all. They haven't talked about repatriating me. I mean, look, if they do, fair enough. I'll go to the Middle East and earn shed loads more cash. Fine by me. But I mean, I don't think that's going to happen, quite frankly. Chris, Chris, just on this, do you think? I know you don't sound like a fan of Nigel Farage. Let's put it that way.
I'm not.
No, I get that point. But do you think that this is a pure opportunism, or do you think he's actually calculating here that this could actually appeal to this new voter base that he's trying to attract?
It's both, Ellie. It's both of those things, mate.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
All right.
He'll take anything. Take my word for it.
Okay, Chris, thank you.